So we're talking about cocaine withdrawal, but not just the obvious stuff,
Right.
like the physical stuff.
Right.
We're digging deeper into the mental side of it. And let me tell you, what's going on in the mind during cocaine withdrawal, that's a whole other world.
Oh, absolutely. It really is.
We're going to be pulling some fascinating insights from the experts at Rolling Hills Recovery Center.
Great resource.
Their website. I was blown away by how much information they have on all this. And seriously, if you are going through this yourself, or if you are supporting someone who is, understanding this mental aspect can be a total game changer.
Totally agree. And it's almost scary to realize how much cocaine can just take over the brain's reward system.
Okay, so everyone kind of gets the basic idea that cocaine gets you high.
Right.
But in terms of the brain, how does it actually hijack the brain? What's going on there?
Well, it all comes down to dopamine, that feel-good chemical. And what cocaine does is basically it just floods your brain with dopamine. And that's what creates that really intense euphoria, like that rush.
Right.
But the problem is your brain gets used to that artificial flood. So it needs more and more cocaine just to feel normal, let alone good.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So it's like your brain gets addicted to feeling that good all the time, and then normal life just seems...
Exactly. It's like bland in comparison. Yeah. And that is exactly why quitting is so hard, because you're not only just fighting those physical withdrawal symptoms, you're literally fighting your brain.
Right.
That's chemically dependent on cocaine.
Wow. Okay. So the Rolling Hills website, they break down withdrawal into 3 stages.
Mm-hmm.
You have the crash, withdrawal, and then
Extinction.
It makes it sound like it's not just a couple of days of feeling crappy.
Oh, definitely not. No, it's definitely more than that.
Yeah.
In that initial crash, that sudden, I just feel awful, my energy is gone, and I just feel terrible, that might feel like the worst of it. But the truth is, it's the psychological withdrawal. That really drags on.
Right.
Weeks, sometimes months. Battling cravings, anxiety, even depression.
Yeah, I was reading about that on the website. They had some pretty intense descriptions.
It's tough.
Of inability to focus, crazy mood swings. They even mentioned paranoia. I mean, that's rough.
It can be really tough. And this is why having support around you is so important.
Yeah.
Friends, family, therapist, whatever it looks like for you. But having people there to help you get through those tough weeks or months, really important. Absolutely critical.
And then even after all of that, there's this extinction phase.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that cravings can come back even months later. Even if you've stopped using, it's kind of unsettling.
Yeah, it is. It really shows why recovery is a long process. You can't just assume that you're done. You have to be aware of those triggers. You got to have healthy coping mechanisms to deal with those, even when you think you're in the clear.
Yeah, I'm getting a really clear picture here of the emotional turmoil.
Yeah.
The mental turmoil.
It's tough. Yeah.
I like the way the website puts it. They call it a mental maelstrom.
I think that's pretty accurate. Yeah, I would agree with that description. Because it is. We're talking about some serious psychological symptoms here. Deep depression, anxiety, intense cravings, and then even for some people,
oh gosh,
suicidal thoughts.
Yeah, that's something I was going to ask you about.
Yeah.
Because I was reading that, these symptoms aren't just difficult to deal with. It can actually be dangerous.
Right, absolutely. It can have a really serious impact on your physical health and mental health. We're talking about the risk of heart problems, seizures, and like I said, suicide is a very real concern.
So it's not something to be taken lightly. Seeking professional help for detox is something to really think about.
I think it's essential, especially because a lot of times cocaine is used to mask underlying mental health issues.
That's an angle I hadn't really thought about.
It's a really important one, though, because when the drug's taken away, those underlying issues can resurface, and it can be even worse than before. So that's where professional help is so important. They can help address the addiction itself and any other mental health conditions that might be going on as well.
There was one word that really stuck out to me on the website, anhedonia, inability to feel pleasure. That just seems so...
It's rough.
Cruel.
It's one of the hardest things for people to go through. Imagine trying to get through withdrawal.
Yeah.
And you can't even enjoy anything. It's really hard to stay motivated. It's really difficult. And that's another area where therapy can be really helpful.
Yeah. So it seems like we keep coming back to the same things. Getting professional help, having that support system, and recognizing how much this impacts you, mentally and emotionally.
Yeah. I think it really highlights that recovery is about so much more than just the physical part of detox. It's really about that connection between your brain chemistry, mental well-being, and changing your behavior for the long term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that makes me think about, okay, how bad can withdrawal actually get? Is it the same for everybody?
It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all thing.
Okay.
The intensity really varies from person to person, depending on a few things.
What kind of thing?
Oh, how much cocaine you were using, and how often. That plays a huge role.
Yeah.
Makes sense, the more you use, the harder it is to stop.
Yeah, makes sense.
Also, how you took the drug. So, for example, injecting cocaine usually has more severe withdrawal symptoms than snorting.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
What about, like, if you already have some mental health stuff going on? Does that affect it?
Absolutely. If you're already dealing with depression or anxiety, those can be way more intense.
Oh, wow.
During withdrawal. It's like a double whammy.
So really you can't say, this is what it's going to be like. It's very case by case.
Exactly. Which is why getting checked out by a doctor, really important. They can figure out how much care you need and come up with a plan that works for you.
Okay. So we've talked about how cocaine kind of takes over the brain's reward system. We talked about those 3 stages, the crash, withdrawal, extinction, and that it affects everybody differently. We've covered a lot. But I think what I'm taking away from all this is cocaine withdrawal is serious.
Yeah.
It's not a joke.
Yeah.
It's as much mental as it is physical.
I think that's a great way to put it. And it really emphasizes how important it is to get help from professionals and build a support system for anyone who's going through this.
Absolutely. So, speaking of support, what does recovery actually look like? Is it a quick fix? Or is it more of a long-term thing?
It's definitely more of a marathon than a sprint.
Okay.
There's no quick fixes when it comes to addiction.
The website talked about taking small steps, like focusing on gradual progress, day by day.
Yeah, that's a really good way to think about it, because it's not like this overnight magical transformation. It's about making small changes consistently. And over time, those add up.
That's actually less scary than I thought.
Yeah.
It's good to know it's okay if you mess up. You don't have to be perfect every day.
Yeah.
As long as you keep going.
Yeah, you don't have to be perfect.
Keep moving.
And that's where having those people around you is so helpful. Friends, family, therapist, support groups. Those are the people that encourage you, keep you accountable, and just give you practical help when it's tough.
It really does take a village. Huh.
It often does. And you know, it's important to remember, recovery isn't about reaching a destination. It's a journey.
Yeah.
And it's a journey that's easier when you have people with you who get it.
Who understand what you're going through.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes all the difference. And it's important to keep in mind that recovery, like with a lot of these substance use disorders, it isn't always a straight line.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be ups and downs, good days, bad days, throughout the whole thing.
So it's not just like, okay, I get through the detox, I get through the withdrawal, and then I'm good. There's more to it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because what it really comes down to is building a whole new way of life. You know, you have to retrain your brain to find pleasure and satisfaction in healthy ways.
Right.
So in activities, in relationships, goals, things that don't revolve around the drug.
It's like relearning how to live, how to experience joy without that artificial boost.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And this is where things like therapy, support groups, and really just changing your lifestyle come into play.
So what kind of lifestyle changes are we talking about here? I mean, I imagine like the basics, exercise, eating healthy, sleep, that kind of stuff.
Those are all important, like the foundation, but it goes deeper than that. It's about figuring out what your triggers are and how to manage them, finding ways to deal with stress and cravings. And like we keep saying, building that network of support, people who truly understand what you're going through.
So you're creating a life where you don't need the cocaine. It's like a distant memory.
Exactly. And it's also super important to address any other mental health issues.
Because those can be feeding the addiction.
Exactly. If someone's using cocaine to self-medicate for anxiety or depression, taking away the drug doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah. You have to deal with the root of it.
You got to get to the root of it. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone. It might look better on the surface,
but it's not fixed.
It's not fixed.
Yeah. Okay. So this is where therapy comes in.
Absolutely. Therapy is crucial because it helps people understand those deeper psychological issues and how to deal with them in a healthy way, long term.
Okay. So we've got a few things here. We've got the physical detox.
Yeah.
The psychological support, making these lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
And then ongoing therapy. To address those deeper issues, it sounds pretty comprehensive, like you're hitting it from all angles.
It is, because addiction doesn't just impact one part of your life. It affects everything. Physical health, mental well-being, relationships, work, your whole life.
It's a bigger deal than just quitting a substance.
Absolutely. It really is about rebuilding the whole life. And it's a process. It takes patience, commitment, and support, but it's also a process that can lead to some really incredible things like personal growth, resilience. You learn so much about yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we've covered a lot. The challenges of withdrawal, how complex recovery is, and that you have to tackle this on a lot of different levels. But before we wrap up, I want to go back to something you said earlier.
Yeah.
About anhedonia. The inability to feel pleasure. That just seems like a huge obstacle.
Yeah.
When you're trying to recover.
It can be a major obstacle, absolutely. Yeah. It's hard to stay motivated to get better. When you can't find joy in anything, it's kind of a catch-22.
Yeah, so how do you even help somebody with that? How do you motivate someone who just feels numb?
Well, that's where the expertise of therapists and addiction specialists is really important. They can help people find small goals, things they can actually achieve, even if it's something small, like getting out of bed and taking a shower, something to give them that sense of accomplishment.
Oh, okay. So start small, celebrate those little victories, and build from there.
Exactly. And sometimes medication can be helpful too. For the depression and anhedonia, it can give people the space to really engage in therapy and all the other parts of recovery.
It's like a little bit of artificial hope.
Right.
Until their brain can make its own again.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. But it's important to remember, medication is just one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
It's not a magic solution.
It's about the whole person. Mind, body, spirit, all of it.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to get help from professionals.
Right.
Who are qualified and who can give individual care and support throughout the whole recovery journey.
Yeah. This all sounds like a lot to deal with. I mean, admitting you have a problem in the first place.
Yeah.
And reaching out for help. It's not easy.
I understand. But it's important to remember, asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. It takes a lot of courage to admit you need support.
Right.
And it's the first step to living a healthier and happier life.
And there's so much help out there. The Rolling Hills Recovery Center, they have a ton of information on their website. They have a hotline. I'm sure there are other organizations, support groups.
Oh, tons.
Ready to help.
Absolutely. And you don't have to go through this alone. There are people who care about you, people who understand, people who want to help you get better.
That's good to hear. So to anyone out there who's struggling with cocaine addiction, or you know somebody who is, please get help. You don't have to do this alone.
That's so important. And never give up hope, even when things feel really dark. There is light at the end of the tunnel. With the right support, you can find your way back to a life that's full of joy, purpose, meaning.
That is so powerful. Okay, so we've gone deep into cocaine withdrawal. We talked about the challenges of withdrawal, the different aspects of recovery, and that it really is possible. But before we wrap things up completely, I want to circle back to something that the Rolling Hills website mentioned. The importance of rebuilding trust and relationships.
Yeah, that's a really important point. And honestly, it's something that a lot of people in recovery struggle with. Addiction really takes its toll on relationships.
Yeah.
And rebuilding trust, it takes time, patience, and a lot of work.
Why is it so hard to rebuild trust after addiction?
Well, addiction often goes hand in hand with secrecy, dishonesty, broken promises. It can be hard for the people you love to just let go of that hurt and anger.
They've been through a lot.
They have, and that's why it's so important for people in recovery, to be honest, open, and willing to make amends for the harm they've caused.
So it's more than just saying sorry. You got to actually change your behavior, show that you can be trusted again.
Exactly. Actions always speak louder than words, and rebuilding trust requires constant effort and a real desire to make things right.
And that can take time.
It can take a lot of time. It's definitely a process, not a quick fix, but it's worth it because strong, healthy relationships, they're a huge part of recovery and just overall well-being.
What advice would you give to someone who's trying to rebuild trust with their loved ones?
I would say be patient, be honest, and be consistent. Show them that you're committed to your recovery and to being a better person. Talk to them openly and honestly, and really listen to their concerns, their feelings.
It's about showing up, not just saying the right things.
Exactly. And don't get discouraged if it takes time. Like we said before, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
I like that you keep bringing that back, the marathon analogy.
Yeah.
It applies to so much of recovery.
It really does. Recovery is a long journey, and it takes patience, persistence, and believing that a better life is possible.
That's beautiful. So to sum it all up, it sounds like long-term recovery.
Yeah.
It's about creating a life.
Yeah.
That you actually want to be sober for.
That's a really beautiful way to put it. Yeah. It's about finding things that bring you joy, give your life meaning, purpose, things that make you excited to wake up in the morning.
And that might look different for everybody.
Absolutely. Recovery is a personal journey. What works for one person might not work for another. It's about finding what brings you joy and fulfillment.
So it's not just about being free from the drug.
Right.
It's about being free.
Yeah.
To live a life that you love.
Exactly. That's the whole point of recovery.
I love that. This has been so insightful. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us and for giving us a glimpse into what that long-term recovery can look like. It's encouraging to know that while it's definitely challenging, it can lead to a really fulfilling life.
Yeah.
We've really dug deep into this whole thing. Cocaine withdrawal, recovery, and it's heavy stuff. No doubt about it. But I think it's really important to remember that recovery is possible. People do get better. They get their lives back. You know, it's not all doom and gloom.
Absolutely. One of the most inspiring things for me working in this field is seeing how resilient people are. The human spirit is amazing. People who have struggled with addiction, they often come out of it with so much more strength, empathy, purpose. It's really remarkable to see.
It's like they're going through a fire and coming out the other side.
Yeah.
Stronger, changed. Like, it's kind of beautiful in a way.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. It's so important for people who are struggling to know that there's help, that they're not alone, and that a life without addiction, it's possible. It's within reach.
So let's bring it all back to our initial goal, understanding that mental battleground of cocaine withdrawal. What's the one thing you really want people to take away from all this? Like, what's that aha moment? That might change their whole perspective.
That's a great question. You know, I think the biggest takeaway is cocaine withdrawal and addiction in general. It's not just about willpower. It's not just about making a choice. It's so much more complex than that. It's about understanding how everything's connected. The brain chemistry, psychological trauma, behavioral patterns, and realizing that addiction is a disease. It's not a moral failing.
It's like taking the judgment out of it.
Exactly. When we can see it as a disease, we can treat it with compassion, empathy. We can focus on treatments that actually work.
It changes how we see addiction, but it also changes how we see the people who are going through it.
Absolutely. And that change in perspective, it can make all the difference for the people trying to recover.
Yeah.
And for the people who love them, their support system.
So well said. We've covered so much. The science, the different stages, the importance of support, treating the whole person has been quite a journey.
It really has. And remember, this is just the beginning. There are so many resources out there. For people who need help or want to learn more, check out the Rolling Hills website. Or any other organization that specializes in addiction. There's a lot of great information out there.
Knowledge is power.
Right.
The more we understand about this, the better we can support each other, our loved ones, our communities. So to all the knowledge seekers out there, keep learning, keep asking questions, keep the conversation going.
Yeah, absolutely. And never lose hope. Recovery is possible. There's a brighter future waiting on the other side.
That is a powerful message. And with that powerful message of hope and resilience, we're going to wrap up our deep dive into the mental battleground of cocaine withdrawal. Thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and take care of yourselves.